Today I'll be taking you guys to Walmart and introducing you guys to one of my favorite subs they have over there. This is the Power Acoustik GW124, 80 bucks. The majority of subwoofers unboxed on this channel usually come in a plain brown box. Well, that's not the case for anything you buy off the shelf. As you can see from the GW124, this thing has all the marketing bling that you would expect for something that's trying to catch your attention as you walk by. It has a whole lot of bright colors and a lot of information in bold print. So let's go over some of that information. The GW124 is Power Acoustik Gothic series, specifically designed for Walmart customers. If you go over to Power Acoustik's website, you will see that they actually offer a regular, I guess you could say, Gothic subwoofer, but this one is all black. It does not have the blue inserts for the screw holes, and also the dust cap is not adorned with the blue coloring. This seems to be something that you only find with the Walmart version of this subwoofer. The Black Gothic seems to be a dual 2-ohm subwoofer offered in 10-inch and 12-inch variants. And aside from the cosmetics of it, it seems that this is the same 1200 watt RMS, 2500 watt peak subwoofer. Power Acoustik is calling the Gothic subwoofer sold at Walmart its premium version of the subwoofer. And upon closer inspection, you do notice that there are a few differences in which these two subwoofers are put together. For one, the Gothic over on their website, the regular black one, actually has a different stamped steel basket from the one that's offered for Walmart customers. The one that's offered for Walmart customers actually seem to have a bit more venting available for the voice coil, cut directly into the stamped steel basket. However, there is no venting for the voice coil gap available on the magnet structure. There's only a single hole there for the pole venting. Whereas the Black Gothic on the website actually has both pole venting and venting for the voice coil gap. Aside from that, everything else is the same. 2.5-inch copper voice coil, 100% copper voice coil that is, and a 254-ounce motor structure. Power Acoustik decided to go with a high roll surround for the GW124, and this is a rubber surround, very thick rubber instead of foam that you see on a lot of other subwoofers. The rubber is a butyl rubber and it is very, very sturdy. The cone material is actually a pressed paper cone, but it has a treated layer on top of it. This is a flax treated paper that has been dipped in a very strong adhesive. This is by far one of the toughest cones that I've seen on a subwoofer in a long time. It is very, very hard, and the flax material is woven here. For the spider assembly, it seems as though Power Acoustik chose to go with a linear roll spider aside from a progressively rolled spider. The linear roll spider is commonly seen in what you would consider a sound quality type application versus that of an SPL type application. Once again, Power Acoustik wanted this subwoofer to stand out by using a dual stitch method for the surround to the cone in that very vibrant blue that you see everywhere on this subwoofer. I guess we can start calling this hue Walmart blue. One major gripe I have about the GW124 is the size of its push terminals. These things are tiny. When I say tiny, I'm talking maybe 12 gauge wire can get in there. Right now, what you guys are looking at is me trying to fit some 12 gauge wire in there. And the problem is that this is a dual 4-ohm subwoofer, okay? Dual voice coil, 4 ohms a piece. And you want to bring that down by wiring this thing in parallel, meaning that you have to connect 2 wires together and stuff them into these small holes. Of course, you can't do that because the wire you're using is 12 gauge. You're planning on sending 5,000 or more through this thing to see how it tests and you want to make sure that you run the adequate size wire. So I don't want to go smaller than 12 gauge, meaning that I'm going to have to get creative here. And as you guys can see, I'm using ferrules to do that. Wire ferrules are basically thin cylindrical pieces of copper with a tinned coating on it. The coating on the copper protects it from corrosion, things of that nature. So I just used it to bind these two wires together. I'm going to use a crimper to smash them even smaller than this so that I can actually fit them into these tiny holes. So if you guys are looking for something like this, I'll try to remember to leave a link in the descriptions below so you can see where to go and find some of the materials that I'm using here in the video. Okay, so a little bit about the box that I'm going to be using to test this subwoofer. The box that I'm using is completely constructed out of 3/4 inch MDF. The front baffle is dual. It has an internal volume of 2.8 gross, so that's around 2.5 or more net. That's after displacement of everything. That includes bracing and everything. The port on here is tuned to 32 Hertz. This port area is 40 square inches, and this is actually what is recommended by Power Acoustik for this subwoofer. Ironically, is also what is recommended by Sundown Audio for their X12 version 3 subwoofer that I previously tested in this enclosure. Really quick, I want to show you guys the response curve of this subwoofer inside of this enclosure over here at WinISD Pro. Right now, WinISD is predicting that this subwoofer inside of this enclosure would peak at around 40 Hertz, and it would be about 3.5 dB above zero. So you have around about a 3.5 decibel gain, peaking at 40 Hertz. If we go to the SPL graph, the SPL graph will show us that this subwoofer would achieve around 122 dB at around 38 to 39 Hertz is what WinISD is predicting. Of course, we can verify this once we get in the field. Okay, so now it's time to test the Gothic 124. There you guys go right there. It is installed, and what we're going to be doing is testing it in the Impala. Now this is an 8,000 watt system. We're not going to be putting 8,000 watts through it. Our decibel or SPL levels are going to be measured with the mini bass meter by SPL Labs. We're going to keep control of our wattage with the SMD AMM1. That's an audio multimeter. And our power delivery system is going to be the Triumph Smart 8 bass. This thing actually has a power control system from 0.5 ohm all the way up to 2 ohms. It can deliver 8,000 watts RMS. Of course, we're not going to be sending it through a 1,200 watt sub, but we are going to see what this thing can do. We're going to push it to its limits today. All right. What we're going to be doing is sending a sine wave through it, a frequency sweep from 150 Hertz down to 20 Hertz at low volume. And we're going to see where it peaks inside the cabin. And wherever it peaks at whatever frequency we see, that's what we're going to burp it at. All right. All right, so that was 633 watts at 3.2 ohms of impedance. We got a 132, 132.3, but that's not what we care about. the metric that we want is at what frequency did it get that. We're gonna go into the mode. 45 hertz. 45 hertz on the money is what it's calling for. So that's what we're gonna burp it at. Our frequency application is reset to 45 hertz. Let's reset this. And we're gonna keep an eye on our power as we increase the volume. So here we go. All right, let's stop this. We pretty much pushed it until it bottomed out. Not really a good thing, but this is for testing purposes. We got 1,992 watts at 3.8 ohms of impedance. That's way over its RMS rating and slightly below its actual max rating. We were able to get a 138.4. That's a 138.4 from this $80 subwoofer forward facing into the cabin. Now we're going to turn it around, allow it to face the trunk. Typically when you turn the box around, you gain a couple dBs. We're going to see if we can get a 140 with a $80 subwoofer from Walmart. We now have the subwoofer rear facing into the trunk. It's going to be loading off this trunk lid here. The trunk is sound treated underneath this black carpet. The whole trunk lid is sound treated, and the rear panels are sound treated along with the internal of the trunk. So I'm kind of curious to see what this little cheap woofer can do forward facing into the trunk. Okay, we have everything reset. The subwoofer is forward facing into the trunk. We're gonna keep an eye on our power and listen for it to bottom. Right now, we have it 45 hertz. That was all the way up to clipping. 3,637 watts at 3.7 ohm of impedance. That kicked the fans on the amplifier. That was a 139.5. 139.5 from this cheap subwoofer forward facing into the trunk. I would say that's not bad at all. Once again, 139.5. And look at the benefits of loading or having a loading wall. That time the subwoofer did not even bottom out, and it took way more power. Let's go take a look at it. Here it is. Now you can feel a little warmth under here, but it's not hot. It's not warm. It's really as though the sun's been shining on it. Now smell-wise, these things stink anyway. I don't know what adhesive Power Acoustik uses on these things, but when they outgas, which is a natural process of the core heating up the adhesive that's being used, whenever they outgas, they stink anyway. They're notorious for that. A lot of people think they're going bad. They're not, they just use a weird adhesive. Okay, so I have allowed the coil to cool down on the subwoofer a little bit more. And what I'm gonna do now is run a third test. The third test is gonna be to test the box at its tuned frequency. I always wanna do that. The previous test is what the subwoofer likes in this environment, which is always the first test you need to run. 32 hertz, here we go. All All right. Once again, we took that all the way up to clipping. We got 3,884 watts at 3.4 ohms of impedance. And that's a 138.8 in the kick. 138.8 in the kick at 32 hertz. Another test you would like to run is the music test. Basically just play a track that you know the subwoofer responds to very well within this frequency range, and then max it out the best you can and see what it does on the meter. So here we go. Music. All right, so that was a 136.4. We'll see the frequency in a minute. 3,044 watts at 4.2 ohms of impedance. Just on that little track. Wasn't a long play, but let's see what this thing does. At 39 hertz. So it kind of likes the 40 rounded around. The high 30s, low 40s is where it's at. Low to mid 40s is where it's at. I think it sounds very, very musical. I like it. So if you're in the market for a cheap sub that can perform well in a good built box, there you go. Get yourself about $100. Go to Walmart and get the Power Acoustik GW124. But anyway, I think it did fairly well for an $80 subwoofer. What if you had 2 or 3 of these things? You know, a 138, almost a 140 in the kick, you know? Not a bad bargain, which is the reason why I love this thing. I always vouch for a cheap sub with good performance. And yeah, that'll be it for now. Catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for visiting the channel to help you simplify car audio. It's the Budget Basshead, and I'm out.